Hi, good morning, everyone. Uh, can everybody hear me okay? Good, good. Okay. Hey, I want to welcome you to the CF Summit Online. Thank you, everybody, for coming in this morning. We'll just get started here. We'll go over, I'll just introduce myself and we'll get rolling here. So my name is Kevin Wright. I'm here in Southern California in Orange County. I'm originally from Stuttgart in Germany. That's where I was born and grew up. Other than programming and ColdFusion, I'm into photography and some organic gardening since the pandemic hit. I started out in the 90s as a Visual Basic programmer for a company called Ralph's Grocery Company, which most of everybody probably knows as Kroger. I've been a ColdFusion developer since '99, starting with Macromedia version 4.5. I'm currently a senior programmer at Western National Group. We're a real estate management company here in Southern California. We manage large apartment complex buildings. So we do in-house programming there. I also do consulting with my own consulting firm, Kinetic Interactive. And also, I've been running the Adobe ColdFusion user group here in Orange County for about the last 10 years. So we're getting ready to ramp that back up again. Actually, we did a relaunch in February of 2020, which was really bad timing because about 3 weeks later, everything shut down and the pandemic hit. So we're going to try that once again coming up in the next few months. So if any of you live in the Southern California area or if you're visiting, we usually meet, we're planning to meet on the third Thursday of every month. So real quick, we're going to be going over, I'm not going to cover any of the basics of CF spreadsheet. I'm hoping that most everybody is familiar with that. What we'll be focusing on is some unique and interesting ways to work with spreadsheets using CF spreadsheet tag. We'll look at the Java POI libraries and how to manipulate spreadsheets using some of that. And then we'll jump into real live demos with formatting and then a way to embed a dynamic chart. And then I'm going to share with you some pretty complex real world examples that we've used that shows you the power of Excel matched with the power of ColdFusion and working together and some of the unique things that you can do. The code, go over here. If you go to this URL, cfsummitkineticinteractive.com, you're going to see this screen. Just ignore this. This is from the summit. I had a giveaway when I was there in Vegas. But if you see this go get them button, that's going to take you to a Git repository where you can download the zip file with all the files. Just unzip them into a folder on your web browser and they'll be up and running. Everything will work exactly, the demos and the spreadsheets and everything. You'll have it all there that you can duplicate what we're going to go over today. So if you want to do that, you can go ahead and get those files. So Microsoft Excel has a pretty big market share in the public domain. About 59 to 60% of users use Excel. Others use Google Sheet, of course, because it's free. But if you look in the enterprise level, even if some companies do use Google Sheets, they also use the Office product. 98% of enterprises uses Excel. So whether your company or your clients, guaranteed they're using Excel in some fashion or some way or some form in their workflows. So with ColdFusion, it's made it very easy to do a lot of things with the CF spreadsheet tag. It gives you a lot of options to, fill in data, delete columns, create sheets. You can do a lot with it. But if you want to get doing real complex things and manipulating the spreadsheets, you have to actually dive into the Java POI library. There's also another ColdFusion library from Julian Hallowell that expands on the CF spreadsheet tag, and this library allows you to do a lot more. Put in comments, put in hyperlinks. I'm just looking at some of the stuff here. Hide columns, repeat rows, all kinds of things that kind of builds on top of the CF spreadsheet tag. But what we'll look at today is actually using the POI library, and then actually looking at some things in Excel. If you're not familiar with Excel, usually you're working with somebody in your company or your client's company who is an analyst that has some experience with Excel spreadsheets, and will use some of their functions and tags to work together with ColdFusion. We'll go over those in the demos. So what is POI? POI is the Java library that ColdFusion uses for the CF spreadsheet tag. And POI stands for Poor Obfuscation Implementation. And some of the names, we'll be looking at the HSSF, which is the horrible spreadsheet format. So if anybody tells you that programmers don't have a sense of humor, don't believe them. My favorite, I think, is the HSMF, the horrible, stupid mail format. So there's libraries for all of the Office products, and we're going to be looking specifically at the HSSF spreadsheet format. And if you actually look in your install location of ColdFusion, you'll see the libraries there in the CFusion Lib folder. And I think ColdFusion 2021, I think I read that it's using 4.2 level. And I'll give you some links at the end where you can go look at all the documentation for the POI libraries. So the first thing we're going to look at today is formatting. And probably the two main things you're going to be doing is alignment and data format, but you can do a lot more than that. You can make text bold, you can do background colors, you can do background fill patterns, you can do font sizes, you can do rotations, which is a little bit strange. Sometimes you need to put your text rotated at a 45 or 90 degree angle to make things fit. There's a lot you can do with formatting. So let's look at the first one. So here I just have a data table and we'll export it to Excel. Give it a minute here. So what we've done here is, you notice that some of the cells are highlighted and formatted. So let's look at the code of what we're doing here. So this is pretty straightforward, and this is the basic stuff that you'll be using. So we create a format of, color and font size and font color, background color, that kind of stuff. And then as we loop through our data records, we send it to this function, and it's over, if it's over a certain threshold, I think I set it to, where is it? I think if it was over $7,000 or $8,000, oh, there it is. It's over, if the threshold is over $9,000, it's going to apply that format to the cell. So if we look, all the cells that are over 9,000 are highlighted. But that's all and good. But if I change the data, the formatting doesn't change. So it's pretty basic. You know, if you need to make things look pretty for headers and sides, you can do a lot of formatting and stuff like that, basically like this. But I want to show you the next one. Same data table. We'll export it. Okay. And here, I think the threshold I put is if it's between 6,000 and 7,000, highlight the cell. So we see it there. But now the unique thing is, if I change it, the actual formatting changes. Let me go to another cell here. Maybe that's 6,900. There we go. It changed. So how do we do something like that? That's not built into the CF spreadsheet tag. That's where we have to go under the hood and start looking at the Java code. So let's go here. Formatting conditional. Here we go. So how do we do something like that? So here I'm just getting my data. I'm throwing it into the spreadsheet. Now this is where we start using the online PO library. So the first thing we need to do is get a hook into our object. So SObject, that's what I created the spreadsheet with. That's the new spreadsheet. Okay. So I get a hook into the workbook object, or the workbook of my spreadsheet object. And then the next thing I do, once I get that, is within the workbook, I get a hook into the sheet itself. So for that, there's only a single sheet. But if you're working with multiple tabs, multiple sheets, you can set it by number, by reference it by name. I'm just using whatever the active sheet is at the moment. So then I create I get a hook into the conditional formatting of the sheet. And then I create a rule of 6,000 to 7,000. And I create a formatting pattern, which is that green color, right? For that, I need to create a Java object reference to hook that into the formatting. Same thing, I create another Java object, which is regions, an array of regions. So I'm saying from the first row to the 100th row, from the first column to the 15th column, make that my region. Now on that active sheet, that conditional formatting, apply that rule to my region and apply it to the sheet. So when we look at the actual spreadsheet, we see here in conditional formatting, I'm going to go manage rules, and we see here's my rule. So I say format the cells that have a value between 6,000 and 7,000. And it's even done the formatting and everything for me. We did that all through the ColdFusion code. Now, if you notice here in this dropdown, you can do between, not between, equal to, and that's where this number references the number in the list. So I'm using number 1, so that's the first one. What if I did, let me, I'm gonna close this all out. I'm gonna close this guy. Let me close this one too. What if I change it to 2? Let's see what happens then. Save it. Let's export it again. Now we'll see everything that's not between 6,000 and 7,000. So there again, that's the that number references the drop-down list of what you want it to do. And again, all this code, the spreadsheets, everything is up there in that Git repository for you guys to play with after the session here. So the next one we'll look at is creating a chart. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go to create a dynamic chart. The other one was the way we've always done it before is you can create a CF chart, save it as an image, and then just apply that image into the spreadsheet. But it looks pretty bad because you can't really style it too much, and it's not dynamic. It doesn't change with the data. So what we'll look at here is, let me close this, actually creating a dynamic chart that when the data changes, the chart changes. And we'll do that all with ColdFusion code. So let's look at this. Let's export it. Whoops. Let's read the file and create a spreadsheet with a chart in it. So here we see a chart with some data. This is just like maybe sales data, whatever you guys use. And if I do change the data in it, the actual chart changes dynamically. Just like that. And change it back. So how do we do something like this in ColdFusion? So again, what we do, I think it's better if I explain this piece first. So what we've done, if we go to look at the data that's supplying the chart, we have 2 named regions within Excel. One called bonuses and one called associates. And then we apply that as the data that fills the chart. So let me cancel that. And then we can actually look at it here in the name manager. We see we have within this workbook, we have 2 named regions, one called associates, one called sales, and it refers to a range of cells. And I've defined those. So if you notice in the demo files that you'll download, there's a single I've created a sort of a starting template that has the chart that references these 2 named regions, but there's no data in the regions yet because we haven't filled that, right? So that's what you start with. This is where you take sort of an Excel template, read it in, manipulate it, save it as a different file, and present it to the user. So let's look at the ColdFusion code on how we're going to do that. So here we read the template in. That's the template that has the named regions already done, has the chart already done, referencing the named regions, but there's no data in it yet. So what we do is we read in our data, right? Here I'm just getting this from, and you have all these CSV files too in the demo. So everything will work right out of the box for you guys. So it reads in the data wherever you're going to get it from. I'm getting it from just a CSV file. And then we loop through and fill those cells with data, a record count, and then change our cell reference for that named range to start and end with however much data we fill it with. So if you have 3 records, it's going to be 3 rows. If you have 100 records, it's going to be 100 rows. So here, we just say, you know, the starting reference is cell A2 to A, whatever our record count is on the first sheet, and I named it sheet 1. Same thing with the second one, right? And then we say for the sales, reference that sheet name, sheet 1, the starting cell reference, the ending cell reference, or I'm sorry, the column reference and the cell reference, the ending cell reference and the ending column reference, and then set it to that reference, the named range to the reference of the cells that we want, right? And then set it to the sheet, active sheet, and then present it to the user. So that's how we got, let me see here. Let me do a test. I always love live demos, and when I try to do a test, we'll see if this works. So what are we looking at here? Is this sales? Sales chart, see a sales chart. Let me open up this spreadsheet. Let me add 2 more. Let's say Kevin Wright and James B. Save that. Save it. Let's close this one. Let's read it again and see if we get 2 more. There we go. So now even our chart is updated with 2 more records in there. And the references, if we look at the references, you know, back to the, what is the named manager formulas? What is the named range? Oh, where did it go? Oh, there it is. It's right in front of me. I didn't even see it. So if we go, we can actually see that the cells that it refers to has been updated. And we did that all through ColdFusion code. Okay, so those are some basic things that we've done. Let's look at some actual real world examples that I've used in the real estate management aspect of things. So our accounting department, I'm going to show you. Okay, our accounting department used to get spreadsheets from all different departments, and they would hand enter it into the accounting system based on those spreadsheets. And they have 9 different spreadsheets that create charges for different departments or different properties, calculated in 9 different ways depending on what kind of invoices they were. So what we did was we standardized them all, we locked them down, and only these yellow portions are available for the people to edit. And across the 9 different spreadsheets that we use, these columns and these yellowed areas do not change location. The way it calculates charges is completely different, but the data, the ending data, always ends up in these same places. So instead of trying to, sometimes as programmers, we see a workflow, and our first natural instinct is to completely redesign the whole thing and replace what they're doing. But we're not really solving the problem, because if we did this all online, they would still have to sit there and hand enter everything, right? So we really didn't take away their pain point. We just moved it from a physical, they're still having to enter all the data. So what we've done here is we're using this CF spreadsheet tag to read in this data and then create actual transactions within the accounting system without them having to enter it. And then we've already, the unique thing about this is, if you notice, we have different sections here ending, these properties are grouped according to their fiscal month ending, whether it's a corporate or a property, all kinds of things. So we do a lot of different things, corporate transactions, everything. So what we have here is we have a lookup. If you look here on this database configs, and you guys have this spreadsheet in that file download, we're looking for this string in column A. Where it finds that is row 14, and where it finds it, the end of E10 is 71. So let's go look at that. So we see here it found it on the 13, right? So here I'm always adding 1 because the data starts on the next line, and then it ends, it finds the 10th here on 73. Whoops. And I'm subtracting 2 because the records end 2 rows before. So if we actually add a record, because we're always taking over management of properties, sometimes we're losing management of properties, these always change. If we insert a line, and I go back here, we've seen, oops, what did I do here? So now it's changed to 72 for the ending, right? The beginning row is still 14, but the ending row changed. But also all of these changed because everything got shifted down by 1. So if I was to have this into the code where I'm looking at beginning this row, ending this row, every time they made a change to one of these 9 spreadsheets, I would actually have to change my code. But in this way, I'm reading, let's look at the code for this. If we notice right here, I'm reading that database configs tab. I'm reading this in as a query, as a record set. So now, as I'm going down and reading this data as a record set, I'm using the reference back here as my ending row, as my beginning row and my ending row. So I never have to change my code. They've done so many updates to them. They've done dozens and dozens of updates over the years, and I never have to change my code with one exception, and I'll get to that in a minute. So this is a unique way that you can, because the last thing you want to do is become the owner of the maintenance of all this stuff. You want to have your admins do it, and you're strictly a programmer and doing the code. So one of the things that we'll do, let me, I'm going to take my vendor name out and then save this. Let me delete that row. Close it. So I'm going to choose that spreadsheet we were just looking at. I'm going to upload it. And I was going to say, hey, there's a problem with this spreadsheet. The vendor name must be included. So what I'm doing is actually validating all kinds of things by using CFSPREADSHEET to create individual query record sets that I can then reference. So one thing we have is a version check on the front page, on that first sheet in a cell with white text so they can't even see it, is the version number to make sure that they're using the latest and greatest version. Then we check for invoice number. We check invoice numbers. The vendor number must be included. Vendor name, the description stuff. Then we actually validate the charges. Also, I have a function that extends to that we. It's up here. Then we have to make sure that all the amounts are correct, numerical, their money account. Do a lot of check, and this is done all with individual query record sets using ColdFusion. So there's unique ways. I'm sorry, you said audio is picking up? Can you guys hear me okay now? That's right. Very garbly. Did that just start happening, or has that been the whole time? Let me see here. Hang on a second. I'll be right back. Hang on. Okay, that should be better. I think my wife started streaming the video. I think that's what it was. Sorry about that. The joys of working from home. Okay, so where was I? So we're validating a bunch of stuff. So this is some unique things that you can use the CFSPREADSHEET tag for, doing lookups and things like that, and try to think out of the box rather than just dumping data into a spreadsheet with a single CFSPREADSHEET tag. you can do a lot of different things. So let's go to the next one, is an export. So oh, you know what? I need to go back. I did change the data back, right? I need to put the vendor name back in. And it'll be row. Go ahead and save it. Let's run this again. So what this does, it just does all that validation checks, and then it presents the user sort of a summary of what they're going to do, and then they just click create vouchers, and it goes into the accounting system. So again, don't try to recreate everything, the whole workflow, but identify the pain points that your end users, your clients have, and then use it accordingly. Just replace that one painful part of their workflow. So here, that was importing data. Let's look at exporting data. So in the apartment management world, we do something called unit by unit inspections. So once a year, they go through the entire property and they go inside the units and inspect it, and they look for anything that has does the carpet need to be replaced? All kinds of things. Are the water heaters up to spec? Are they strapped down? Are there any illegal pets? Are there any pets where some complexes don't allow pets? All kinds of things. So this is a third-party company, and they go through with a little iPad. Our employees go through with a little iPad, and they just check off these things. And in each unit, there's hundreds of things that they check throughout the unit. And our property management department wanted to see things in a way that the reporting really didn't work with that third party. So we download data every evening on a rolling 3 days, and we upload it into our own data tables that we can slice and dice and look at in different ways. So they look at stuff like this. Here's a general category, for each individual unit all at the same time, rather than look at it each individual unit one at a time. They want to see everything. So that's one way they looked at the data. The other way was to summarize it up. So for the entire property in the bathrooms, were there moisture issues? Was that, do the shower faucets need to be replaced or repaired? All kinds of things. They look through everything here, okay? And that's all fine and good. But last year, they presented me with this. They wanted to see all this data summarized actually in this spreadsheet. So they want to see the summarized data across the board. And what they did too is they recategorized some things in these individual, I want to say, categories. So we had to recategorize stuff, figure out where the data, what cell the data needs to go into. And this is a programming nightmare if you think about it. And it's not only one tab, it's two. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So if we had did this in ColdFusion, in the code itself, to figure out where everything goes, we would have thousands of lines of code. And if anything ever changed on this spreadsheet, we would have to go change our code. And again, that's the last thing we want to do, is become the owner of the maintenance of all this stuff. So what we did was we came up with a schema sheet. And we say, from the data that's in our tables, we have a section, an item, a key, and a key value. And then we match it to the spreadsheet section. Here we see they're taking occupancy and general category stuff and patio category stuff and placing it in a unit category on the spreadsheet. Okay, so we have this schema sheet of what data responds to the spreadsheet. Okay, let's look at the ColdFusion code here now. Okay. So we read in this spreadsheet, which right now is all, it's zeros, it's all blank, right? I'm going to close this. We read it in. And then we read the spreadsheet in. And then we read that one tab, that data schema, right? As a separate record set. So now we have our data record set and we have our schema record set, right? So I'm sorry, it's up here. This is where we get the schema, right? And then as we're looping through our initial data, we're going to that schema record set and saying, get me from the schema where the section equals the record set section, the item equals the record set item, the key name, and so on, the key value. If there is, then we go to, I should open it up again. Hang on, I shouldn't have closed it. Sorry about that. So we get the cell reference, right? So then we make sure that we're on the correct sheet, either tab 1 or tab 2, wherever that data is going to go. We set the active sheet, and then we set the cell value to our record set value in the schema's cell and row, right? Cell and column, or row and column, I should say, not cell, right? So there's one thing with the cell reference that CFSPREADSHEET uses is row and column, but we've got tons of them here, right? And we can't just reference C16. We have to say column 3, row 16. That's the way CFSPREADSHEET sets the cell reference, right? But if we were to do that in code, that would be a nightmare too, to figure out how many rows. If it's A, it's 1. If it's B, it's 2. If it's so on and so on. So that's where we use something in Excel, which is a lookup. We'll see here, column indirect. It says, look at cell H2 and give me the column and the row name, right? So give me the column. This one says, give me the row. By the value in that cell by reference. So if I change it to, I don't know, H21, we'll notice that the column and the row changed. So that's where I'm saying, use the power of Excel to do the work for you rather than trying to do it in ColdFusion. Use the strength of ColdFusion, use the strength of Excel matched together. You can do some pretty cool things. So let me close this up. Let's run this and see. I want to get the worksheet. Open it up. And there we go. It's all filled out with the data on both sheets. Right. And you'll notice, hey, where did the schema sheet go? I only see 2 tabs anymore. So what I'm doing down here is before I present it to the end user, I'm actually deleting that sheet. So they don't need to see that stuff. And then for testing purposes or troubleshooting, it looks to see, is it me? And then my raw data set that I'm getting from the database or the CSV, wherever it's coming from, I dump that into a spreadsheet so I can see what my raw data is, what my schema says. If things are going sideways, I have sort of a, so you can add sheets, delete sheets, do all kinds of stuff. And that's within CFSPREADSHEET tag. One unique problem I had was some end users in testing and beta testing, their data wasn't getting updated in the cell until they actually clicked on the cell and then clicked out of it, and then the calculation would happen. So like the totals and things like that. That was kind of weird because it was hit and miss. Some users had it, some users didn't. So here I'm using the underlying POI, and I'm forcing a recalculation of the entire workbook. So when it opens up, there's a, I think, is data dirty flag that Excel uses. So I'm forcing that when the user opens it up for the first time, the entire workbook recalculates and everything is done. So you can solve a lot of problems using the POI library over and above what the CFSPREADSHEET tag uses. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you. Again, if it's static data that we're dumping out, apart from maybe some analysts, they just want a dump of data and you just put it in a spreadsheet with, and that's that. But if it's static data in a report, why are we using Excel? You can do it, with PDFs or whatever. A minimum, if you're producing spreadsheets for end users that take it as a base point to do further manipulation, use formulas, use dynamic data. That should be a minimum starting point for your end users, for you guys to give to your end users. There's no reason to fill a spreadsheet with static data that they're going to have to, go in and manipulate and do formulas and do things like that. And then again, don't reinvent the wheel. So when you guys are looking at their workflows, don't try to recreate the entire workflow. That's not really solving the problem. You're just moving it online, or look for their individual pain points and solve that unique point. Just like we did with the accounting system. We didn't replace the entire workflow of the different departments sending in the spreadsheets. We just took that pain point of the accountant having to hand enter everything from that spreadsheet to where we just upload the spreadsheet and it does it for them. They just validate that everything looks correct and then create the vouchers. And then combining the strength of ColdFusion. ColdFusion makes things so easy, and the CFSPREADSHEET tag is just proof of that. But then added with the strength of some of the functions and things that you can do in Excel, you can do a lot more. So hopefully you guys have some things to take away and use in your workflows and in your organizations. Some resources for you here. The Java POI documentation is up there. Oh, you know what? I wanted to show you one thing. So if you ever have, where is it, conditional? If you guys ever have any questions or something's not just working right and you're not too familiar with where you are in your POI hierarchy of objects, you can just dump this stuff out. Let me show you this. Okay. There we go. So I'm dumping out these objects, and you can actually see the POI object. Here we're using the HSSF user model library, and this is the workbook object. You can see all the methods in here, right? And then out of the workbook object, I made a reference to the sheet object. And there you can see all the methods of the sheet object. So these are all the things you get to work with. And then out of that sheet object, I got a reference to the conditional formatting, which is up here, right? And here are the methods of that. And so you can traverse all the way down through your hierarchy and see where you are, see what's available to you to use within the POI library. And that'll help you out a lot. Just dump that stuff out. Okay? That's one thing I did want to show you. Let's go back here. So POI documentation. CF Simplicity adds a lot of functionality to the basic CF spreadsheet tag. That's Julian Holloway again. Very good library. And then here's a reference to some Excel functions. Now, in that download with all the files, there's a PDF also that I explain how to do things like the named ranges and things like that. So in addition to the code, you have sort of a how to do stuff in Excel for those of you who are not real familiar with Excel. Going even further than that, this link here shows you all the functions that Excel has that you can use together. So you can connect with me if you guys have any questions or just reach out to me. That's fine by email, by LinkedIn. I don't use Twitter that much, but I do have an account there. And then my Instagram, there's not much programming on there. If you go there, you'll see my travel photography and you'll see my garden, my organic gardening. So that if there's any questions, you can type in there. Where do we get the files for this presentation? Let me go back up here. Again, if you go to that URL, ignore this because we're not having a giveaway today. Sorry about that. I didn't get a chance to update the PowerPoint. Go to this Go Get Them button, okay? And that should get you all the files and that PDF explaining how to do stuff in Excel. If you unzip it, put it in a folder on your web server, it should be up and running right away. You don't have to make any adjustments to it. I think the recording of the session should be available maybe later today. I'm not sure. I'll have to check with the Adobe people. Should be within a day or two. Okay, if there's had my heart set on the prize. Come to the Summit Live next year, Mark. Okay. Well, I always have a giveaway when I do sessions. Okay. Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming, joining me this morning. And again, if you guys have any questions with the file downloads or how to do some things, I'm more than happy to help. So you can reach out to me. Again, here's my information. I think if you scan that QR code there, it'll take you to my LinkedIn, and you can connect with me there if you want. Okay. If there's nothing else, wish you a great rest of the day, and thank you for joining me this morning.